My name is Briar Elaine Mann. I'm 32 years old, and 3 hours before everything collapsed, I was still the woman everyone said had saved our family. I stood in the boardroom on the top floor of Mann Freight Solutions, overlooking downtown Buffalo. Champagne corks popped against the ceiling. People clapped, laughed, hugged each other like we had just survived a war. Because, in a way, we had. The final wire had just gone through. $28 million, paid in full. After 3 years of suffocating debt, foreclosure threats, and sleepless nights, the company my grandparents built was finally free. Someone handed me a glass. Someone else shouted my name. A banner hung crooked across the windows. Debt-free. Thank you, Briar. I remember thinking, this is what it feels like to finish something impossible. Then my mother closed the door behind me. The sound was soft, controlled, final. She looked me straight in the eye and said the sentence that rewrote my entire life. Your job is done. I smiled at first. I thought she was joking. She wasn't. Nash will be CEO starting tomorrow, she continued, folding her arms. Pack your things. Security will escort you out by the end of the day. I didn't even understand the words at first. Less than an hour earlier, they had called me a hero. Now my access card was already dead. By sunset, I was standing on the sidewalk outside the building I had just saved, holding a cardboard box with my laptop and a hoodie inside it. That's how I became homeless in the city I rescued, while my family celebrated without me. 3 years earlier, my life had looked nothing like that. I lived in a penthouse overlooking Central Park. I was the CEO and co-founder of a Manhattan-based supply chain analytics firm called North Peak Analytics. We had just closed our Series C at a $2.1 billion valuation. That year, my total compensation hit $1.4 million, salary, equity, bonuses. I worked hard, yes, but I was respected. I was secure. Then, my phone rang at 2:07 a.m., Buffalo area code. I hadn't seen that number in years. It was my father. He was crying so hard I couldn't understand him at first. When he finally caught his breath, the words came out broken. Mann Freight is drowning, Briar. $28 million in debt. The banks are filing foreclosure. We're running out of time. Before I could even process it, my mother took the phone. Her voice was calm, measured, strategic. You're the only one who can save the family legacy, she said. Please come home. They didn't ask. They begged. They reminded me how I had always been the responsible one, the smart one, the daughter who owed the family for everything they had done for me. Family first. Blood is thicker. We sacrificed everything for you. I told my board the next morning I was taking an indefinite leave. I sold enough shares to keep my co-founder calm. I handed day-to-day control to my president, and I booked a one-way flight to Buffalo. When I landed, the cold November air felt like a warning I chose to ignore. 2 days later, I walked into Mann Freight's headquarters for the first time in nearly a decade. The building smelled the same: diesel, stale coffee, desperation. The numbers were worse than they had said. We had maybe 90 days. I accepted the role of interim CEO on the spot. No salary, no contract, no guarantees. My parents promised that once the company was stable, everything would be made right. I believed them. Because when your parents are drowning, you don't ask for a life jacket first. I moved into their spare bedroom, started working at 5 a.m. every day. 16-hour days turned into 18, then 20. I negotiated with lenders, rewrote contracts, cold called clients from a cubicle that still had someone else's family photos taped inside. Every time I asked about outside help, my mother shut it down. We only trust family, Briar. So I did it alone. Within 6 months, we stopped the bleeding. Within 18, we posted our first profit in 4 years. Every night I came home exhausted. My mother would squeeze my hand and say, "You're saving us. We could never repay you." I believed her. Meanwhile, my younger brother Nash lived a very different reality. One January morning, he rolled into the parking lot in a brand new Porsche. 2 weeks later, he posted photos from the Maldives. I saw them while eating cold pizza at my desk at 2 a.m., trying to cover next week's fuel bill. When I asked my mother about his spending, she waved it off. "He feels useless watching you carry everything," she said. Apparently, useless was expensive. By the time the company stabilized, the comments started. "Nash has the right look. Clients trust a man in charge. Bloodlines matter." I laughed it off. I doubled down. I worked harder. That was my mistake. Because I didn't realize I was never meant to stay. I was only meant to save them. By month 10, the company was no longer gasping for air. Revenue was climbing. Lenders stopped calling every day. For the first time since I'd come back to Buffalo, I allowed myself to imagine a future that didn't involve sleeping on a leather couch in my office. That's when my mother started planting seeds. Nothing obvious at first, just casual remarks slipped into Sunday dinners like they were harmless observations. "Nash really connects with people," she said once, passing the salad bowl. "He has that presence clients respond to." Another night, after a glass too many of wine, she smiled and added, "You've always been the fixer, Briar, but this is still a family company. Blood matters." My father said nothing. He just stared at his plate the way he always did when silence was safer than truth. I told myself I was imagining things. Families don't work like that, I thought. Not after everything. So I did what I had always done when things felt unstable. I worked harder. I brought in 3 major clients from the Northeast Corridor, contracts that doubled our refrigerated division overnight. I implemented routing software I had helped design years earlier at North Peak and cut fuel costs another 11%. I didn't ask for credit. I didn't ask for rest. I thought results were still the only currency that mattered. Meanwhile, Nash began showing up more often. Always late morning, always in a fresh suit. He shook hands with drivers, laughed loudly in the warehouse, and told people everything was going to be fine now that the family was back in charge. The warehouse guys started calling him Mr. Man behind his back, half joking, half not. My mother watched it all with quiet satisfaction, like someone watching a plan fall into place. The morning we wired the final $28 million to the bank, the entire company threw a celebration. Someone hung hand-painted banners across the loading dock doors. "Debt-free! Thank you, Briar!" Drivers crowded around tables stacked with pizza and sheet cake. A mechanic I had fought to keep on payroll handed me a bouquet wrapped in company paper, his hands shaking. "You saved my family," he said, eyes wet. For the first time in 3 years, I felt proud without being tired. Nash wasn't there. He texted that he was handling a client lunch downtown. Everyone knew what that meant. My mother found me near the dessert table and took my elbow, steering me toward a small meeting room off the cafeteria. She closed the door. The noise of celebration faded into a distant hum. She didn't sit. She folded her arms and looked at me the way she used to when I was a child who had broken something expensive. "Your job is done," she said. I laughed, waiting for the punchline. It never came. "Nash starts as CEO tomorrow," she continued. "HR already has the paperwork. Your access card will be deactivated at 5. The room tilted. "You're firing me," I said. "Today? The same day we go debt-free?" "I'm not firing you," she corrected calmly. "You were interim. The interim period is over." I asked about the promises, the shares, the house in Amherst. She waved her hand. "Legal will handle whatever you're entitled to." That was it. No thank you. No acknowledgement. Just a clean erasure. By the time I reached my office, an automated email had already arrived. "Access revoked, effective immediately." A security guard stood outside my door with a cardboard box. He wouldn't meet my eyes as I packed the few personal items I had left. A framed photo from North Peak's launch party, a plant someone had sent when I moved back, the hoodie I lived in during late nights. 10 minutes later, he walked me to the elevator. People who had hugged me hours earlier suddenly found their shoes fascinating. I drove to the house in Amherst on autopilot. The key still worked. The alarm code didn't. Inside, my clothes were folded neatly on the guest bed. A printed note sat on top. "Please remove by Friday." I sat on the edge of that bed until the sun went down, trying to understand how this same woman who begged me to come home now wanted me gone before the ink dried on the bank transfer. I didn't cry. I was too stunned for tears. 6 months later, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. I was living in a small apartment near Delaware Park, still adjusting to silence after 3 years of constant crisis. When my father's name flashed on the screen for the 7th time, I finally answered. He sounded panicked, desperate. "The company is collapsing," he said. "We need you back." Nash had signed a 10-year exclusive contract with a national broker at rates so low the finance team projected a 65% revenue drop by summer. Drivers were quitting, clients were canceling, banks were circling again. Nash jumped on the line, talking over my father, promising the moon if I'd just come in for 30 days. They kept saying family, legacy. We never meant for this to happen. Like my eviction had been an accident. I let them talk until their voices ran out. Then I said calmly, "I don't work there anymore." I blocked both numbers that afternoon. That same week, I hired a forensic accounting firm. I had saved every email, every text, every document from the past 3 years. I wanted the truth on paper. 3 days later, the lead accountant called me personally. His voice was careful, professional. What he found wasn't incompetence. It was theft. Forged signatures, credit cards opened in my name, loans taken out using my personal guarantee without my knowledge. Hundreds of pages of evidence. Then my phone rang again. This time, it was a lawyer I had never spoken to. And what she told me made everything finally make sense. Her name was Helen Dorsey. She introduced herself calmly, professionally, like someone who had been waiting a long time to make that call. "I'm the estate attorney for your grandmother, Selma Mann," she said. "I've been trying to reach you for years." I almost laughed. My grandmother had been dead for 8 years. No one had ever mentioned a lawyer trying to contact me. Not once. Helen continued, explaining that in 6 weeks, I would turn 32, the exact age specified in an irrevocable trust my grandmother had created shortly before she passed. The trust held $9 million in liquid assets, and an 18% ownership stake in Man Freight Solutions, structured with airtight protections, spendthrift provisions, no early access, no coercion, no family interference. The trust had been designed to activate at one specific moment in my life. Now. Helen explained something else, something that made my stomach drop. My mother had been fighting the trust in court for years, filing motions claiming undue influence, alleging mental incompetence, even attempting to have me declared financially unfit so she could petition for control. Every attempt had failed because my grandmother had been meticulous. Multiple psychiatric evaluations on video, independent witnesses, language so ironclad it had survived every legal challenge. The trust wasn't just an inheritance, it was a warning. When I hung up, I sat in silence for a long time. For the first time since being escorted out of that building, I wasn't confused. I was clear. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't poor judgment. It wasn't family conflict. It was systematic theft, wrapped in the language of loyalty. That night, I made a decision. I was done trying to be the good daughter, done trying to be reasonable, done trying to protect people who had already decided to sacrifice me. I wasn't going to save Man Freight again. I was going to let the truth finish what I had started. I handed everything to my lawyer, the forensic accounting report, the forged signatures, the fraudulent loans, the credit cards opened in my name. I didn't call my parents. I didn't warn my brother. I stopped intervening. A week later, my ex-boyfriend from college, Jet, texted me out of the blue. "Hey, Briar, can we talk about Man Freight?" We met at a quiet bar downtown. He slid a folder across the table. As CFO of a major regional carrier, his company had been monitoring Man Freight's numbers. They wanted to acquire it. $12 million in cash, full debt assumption, 30-day close. It was a lowball offer, but it was generous given what he showed me next. The exclusive contract Nash had signed was a financial death sentence. Locked-in rates, crushing penalties, no exit. Without intervention, bankruptcy was weeks away. I didn't stop it. I didn't even hint at what was coming. Instead, I waited. 2 weeks later, the U.S. Attorney's Office announced an asset freeze. Every account tied to Man Freight was locked. Every credit line revoked. Vendors halted deliveries. The company filed Chapter 7 48 hours later. Fraud. Identity theft. Forged guarantees. The evidence was overwhelming. The company collapsed fast, the way things do when the truth finally gets oxygen. Trucks sat idle. Drivers collected final checks. The company name vanished from the building like it had never existed. My father called once, begging me to sign an affidavit saying it was all a misunderstanding. I didn't. Nash emailed from a personal account, rambling, blaming everyone but himself. I forwarded it to my lawyer and didn't reply. I watched it all from a distance, reading public filings, watching the business pages report on the fallout. And for the first time in my life, I didn't step in to fix it. Because I finally understood something no one had ever taught me. Not everything broken is your responsibility. The collapse didn't make headlines for long. In Buffalo, companies fail quietly. 1 week you're a name people recognize, the next you're a footnote in a court filing. Man Freight Solutions disappeared in under 60 days. The fleet was auctioned off to out-of-state buyers. The headquarters lease went to a call center. The sign came down like it had never meant anything. I watched it all unfold through public records and local business journals, from a distance, where I finally belonged. 14 months after the day I was escorted out, I stood across Elmwood Avenue watching an auction sign go up on my childhood home in Amherst. The house where I learned to ride a bike, where every holiday used to smell like my mother's cooking. Now strangers walked through those rooms, pointing at walls, whispering about square footage. My father's Cadillac sat on the curb with a foreclosure sticker across the windshield. By the end of that week, the bank took possession. My parents moved into a one-bedroom apartment above a laundromat in South Buffalo. Coin-operated heat, thin walls, no control. Nash filed personal bankruptcy shortly after. Between the loans he signed and the debt my mother had quietly shifted onto him, his credit dropped below 500. No executive job, no investor trust. He took a driving job for a small carrier outside Rochester just to keep the lights on. I didn't feel satisfaction. I felt finality. My 32nd birthday came quietly. That morning, Helen wired the full $9 million from the trust into my account, along with the 18% stake in whatever remained of Man Freight, which the trustee valued at exactly $0. My grandmother had been right. She didn't leave me money. She left me protection. I paid off every fraudulent account, closed every poisoned line of credit, watched my own score climb back into the high 700s. A few months later, I accepted an offer to return to North Peak, this time as executive chair. 2 weeks after that, I moved back to Manhattan. Not to a penthouse, to a quiet apartment with windows that opened. I blocked every number tied to my old life. No forwarding address, no explanations. Some families are built on love. Mine was built on extraction, and I finally stopped letting it drain me. I learned something no one teaches women like us. Women who carry everything, fix everything, hold everything together. Being capable does not make you obligated. You don't owe anyone your future just because they share your blood. You don't have to burn yourself alive to keep other people warm. Walking away isn't failure. Sometimes it's the bravest form of success. If any part of this story felt familiar, if you've ever been the strong one, the reliable one, the one everyone leans on until there's nothing left, please remember this. You deserve a life that gives back to you. Thank you for staying with me until the end. And if you've ever had to choose yourself after being used for too long, you're not selfish. You're finally free.